The back-to-back Masters champion is supposed to be cool under pressure, unshakable, the man who thrives when the stakes are highest. But at the PGA Championship, something different happened. First, he called his opening round a word that had moderators cringing: shit. Then, after fighting back with a bogey-free 67, he looked at a thrilling bunched leaderboard and declared it a sign of not a great setup. Now, golf fans are furious. They're calling him spoiled, pathetic, and a sore loser. Is Rory McIlroy cracking under the pressure? Golf Untold investigates. For more coverage in golf, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Words. The storm began on Thursday at Aronimink Golf Club in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. Rory McIlroy, the defending Masters champion and the man many expected to contend for his third PGA Championship title, walked off the course after his opening round with his head down and his frustration boiling over. He had just shot a 4-over par 74, a score that left him facing the very real possibility of missing the cut at a major championship for the first time in years. His round had started poorly and ended worse. 4 consecutive bogeys to finish. Only 5 fairways hit all day, 36 putts. Nothing was working. The numbers told a painful story. His driving, usually his greatest weapon, had abandoned him completely. "I'm just not driving the ball well enough," he admitted later. "It's been a problem all year for the most part. I miss it right, and then I want to try to correct it, and then I'll overdo it, and I'll miss it left." But it was not just the statistics that caught everyone's attention. It was the raw, unfiltered anger that spilled out in full view of cameras, fans, and reporters. When a tournament moderator asked McIlroy to sum up his first round in the press conference, the 6-time major winner did not sugarcoat his answer. He looked at the moderator and delivered a single word that stopped everyone in their tracks. "Shit," he said bluntly. The room went silent. Reporters exchanged glances. The moderator moved quickly to the next question, but the damage was done. The expletive was captured on video, ready to be shared across every social media platform within minutes. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Golf fans took to social media to express their disappointment. One fan called him an easy guy to root against. Others appreciated his honesty in an era of scripted athlete responses, but many were turned off by the crude language. The debate over whether McIlroy's honesty was refreshing or unprofessional had begun, and it was only going to get more intense. But McIlroy was not done. When he returned to the media center after shooting a bogey-free 67 on Friday, climbing from outside the cut line to within striking distance of the lead, a reporter reminded him of what he had said the day before. The question was simple: how would he describe Friday's round compared to Thursday? McIlroy laughed, and then he delivered another crude response. "Not as shit," he said with a smile. The second crude comment confirmed for many fans that the first one was not a mistake or a moment of heat-of-the-moment frustration. It was a pattern. He explained that he had misjudged Aronimink on Thursday, arriving at the course expecting lower scores and playing with an aggression that the conditions did not support. He said, "I had a better understanding of how the course was playing." But the damage to his image for some fans had already been done. The pressure was clearly getting to him, and his reactions showed it. Just when it seemed the controversy could not get any bigger, Rory McIlroy walked into the media center after his second round and poured gasoline on the fire. He had just played brilliantly, shooting a bogey-free 67 to climb back into contention. He was 5 shots off the lead heading into the weekend. Any satisfaction from the comeback, however, was quickly eclipsed by what he said next. McIlroy looked at the leaderboard. 15 players were within 2 shots of the lead. It was the 3rd time in major championship history that the leaderboard had been so bunched after 36 holes. It was tight, competitive, and in McIlroy's opinion, that was a problem. He thinks a bunched leaderboard like this, "I think it's a sign of not a great setup," he declared. "I think when it's as bunched as it is because it hasn't really enabled anyone to separate themselves." He continued, explaining his reasoning. "It's easy to make a ton of pars, hard to make birdies. And not that it's hard to make bogey, but it feels like bogey's the worst score you're going to shoot on any one hole." McIlroy acknowledged that the course itself was good. The pins were tough. The wind was a factor, but he stood by his assessment. I've always felt like really good setups, it starts to spread the field a bit, and not great setups sort of bring everyone together. I feel like that's what's happened the last 2 days. The reaction from golf fans was swift and brutal. Social media erupted with criticism. One fan called McIlroy totally spoiled and suggested he thinks every course should be to his standards. Another labeled him a sore loser. The comments kept coming. "This is totally pathetic from Rory. His comments actually make no sense at all," one fan fumed. Even some of McIlroy's own supporters were turned off. "I'm a big Rory fan, but complaining about a course setup that's led to a bunched leaderboard isn't a great look," one wrote. Other fans pointed out what seemed obvious to them. The bunched leaderboard was not evidence of a bad setup, it was evidence of a great one. PGA Tour players not being able to score well is literally the sign of a great course setup, one fan sarcastically claimed. Another wrote, "As a fan, I love it. What he sees as bad, the fan sees as entertaining. It's boring watching players just annihilate courses." The overwhelming fan sentiment was that the PGA of America had nailed the setup at Aronimink. McIlroy, it seemed, was in the minority. The criticism extended beyond just the substance of his comments, to his mindset. One fan accused McIlroy of having a selfish mindset for prioritizing his own preferences over what made the tournament entertaining for fans. Another suggested he needed to shut up and eat his pride. And in perhaps the most cutting remark of all, one fan declared that McIlroy was a world record holder for crying all the time. The debate over McIlroy's comments had become about more than just course setup. It was about his character, his attitude, and his ability to handle pressure with grace. The debate over McIlroy's comments exposed a growing gap between what players want and what fans expect from professional golf. Players like McIlroy want setups that reward great shots and punish bad ones in ways that allow the best players to separate themselves from the field. They want leaderboards that spread out, where the true champion emerges from the pack. Fans, on the other hand, want drama. They want bunched leaderboards. They want uncertainty. They want to watch on Sunday afternoon not knowing who will win until the final putt drops. One fan summed up the sentiment perfectly. "The setup has given us a tight leaderboard and more entertainment. Rory is mad he is not near the top of the leaderboard." Another questioned McIlroy's logic directly. "I mean, isn't that proving the opposite? No one can separate. Course is hard, you better take your par and move on." The fans were not buying what McIlroy was selling. They saw a player who was frustrated with his own performance, looking for something else to blame. The irony of the situation was not lost on everyone. McIlroy had just shot a bogey-free 67, one of the best rounds of the day. He had climbed from outside the cut line to within 5 shots of the lead. By any objective measure, he was in great position heading into the weekend. And yet, rather than celebrating his comeback, he was complaining about the setup. The timing of his comments, coming after a round that should have put him in a positive frame of mind, struck many fans as tone-deaf. One fan noted that McIlroy had been given the perfect course conditions, no wind compared to the morning wave, and still complains. Another pointed out the obvious: he's playing bad, and the course is humbling people like him. This is what fans want. The sentiment was clear. Golf fans were tired of hearing millionaire athletes complain about conditions that made tournaments more exciting for the people watching at home. The debate was not limited to anonymous fans on social media. Golf analysts also weighed in on McIlroy's comments. While some understood his frustration, most agreed that his public complaints were not a good look for a player of his stature. The contrast with Scottie Scheffler, who had also expressed frustration with the pin locations, but in much more measured terms, was striking. "That was one of the craziest pins that I've seen," Scheffler said, but he did not blame the setup for his struggles. The difference in tone between the world number 1 and the 6-time major winner was not lost on fans. The pressure of the moment was clearly affecting McIlroy. His words revealed a man who was feeling the weight of expectations. The back-to-back Masters champion, the man who had dominated Augusta National like few in history, was struggling to find his rhythm at Aronimink.
And, rather than internalizing that struggle, he was externalizing it, blaming the course, the setup, anything but himself. For fans who had watched him cruise to victory at the Masters, this new, frustrated version of Rory McIlroy was difficult to recognize, and the debate over whether he was cracking under pressure was only getting louder.
The frustration that fans witnessed in McIlroy's press conferences was not limited to his words. On the course itself, his body language told an equally revealing story. During the second round at Aronimink, as cold winds blew and temperatures dropped, the pace of play became a major issue. Groups were backing up on nearly every hole, and at one tee box, cameras captured McIlroy waiting with visible impatience, his arms crossed, his face tight with frustration. The slow play, which he had endured for hours, was clearly taking a toll on his mental state. McIlroy was asked about the pace of play after his round. His response was resigned rather than angry. "It was slow, but it's fine. It seems like that's the first 2 days of major championship golf are always going to be like that. Obviously, over the weekend it will speed up. Hopefully we can play in 2 balls and things will flow a bit better," he said. But the image of him standing on the tee box, waiting and waiting, became another piece of evidence for fans who believed McIlroy was struggling to handle the pressure. The slow play issue at Aronimink was not unique to this tournament. It has been a growing problem on the PGA Tour for years, with players like Brooks Koepka and Charlie Hall being among the most outspoken critics. But the sight of Rory McIlroy, the face of the PGA Tour, visibly frustrated by the pace of play during a major championship round, was a new low. It symbolized everything that was wrong with the pace of play crisis, and it added yet another layer to the debates surrounding McIlroy's week. Despite all of the controversy, the crude comments, the setup criticism, and the slow play frustration, McIlroy kept his focus on the task at hand. He shot brilliant 66 on Saturday, electrifying the crowd and vaulting up the leaderboard. He admitted after the round that he leaned on his experience from the Masters to refocus following his day one struggles. "I thought back to last year's Masters. I was 7 back after the first day, and I was 2 ahead going into the final day. So there's a lot of golf, and a lot of things can happen during the course of a golf tournament," he said. The pressure of the situation was not lost on McIlroy. He knew that his comments had sparked a firestorm. He knew that fans were watching his every move. He knew that his legacy was on the line. And yet, he kept playing. He kept grinding. He kept giving himself chances. The 66 on Saturday was not just a good round of golf. It was a statement. It was Rory McIlroy telling the world that he was not done, that he was not broken, that he could still compete at the highest level. The fans who had been criticizing him all week were suddenly watching with renewed interest. The debate was far from over, but McIlroy was doing what he does best. He was letting his clubs do the talking. The final chapter of the Rory McIlroy debate at the PGA Championship hinges on one question. Will he back up his words with his play? Heading into the final round, McIlroy sat at 3 under par, 3 shots off the lead held by Alex Smalley. He was very much in contention for his 3rd PGA Championship title and his 7th major overall, a number that would break the record for most majors by a European man. Colt Knost, the former PGA Tour player turned analyst, offered his prediction for what McIlroy would need to shoot to win. "I think you need to get to 6 under par where Alex Smalley is right now. I think that's going to be the winning score. I think that'll be a playoff. 7's going to win it outright for you," Knost said. The challenge was clear. McIlroy would need to shoot in the mid-60s, a tall order, on a course that had humbled the best players in the world all week. The concern for McIlroy, as Knost noted, was that there were so many impressive names within a handful of shots of the lead. Jon Rahm is tied for 2nd, along with Ludwig Aberg. Meanwhile, Xander Schauffele will play alongside McIlroy on Sunday, with the pair both on 3 under par. Justin Rose and Cam Smith are among the players at 2 under par, while Scottie Scheffler is a further shot back, Knost observed. Someone was likely to emerge from the pack with the round of their lives. The question was whether that someone would be Rory McIlroy. The narrative surrounding McIlroy had shifted dramatically over the course of the week. On Thursday, he was the frustrated star who could not find the fairway and cursed in his press conference. On Friday, he was the comeback kid who shot a bogey-free 67, but then complained about the setup. On Saturday, he was the charging champion who electrified the crowd with a 66. And on Sunday, he would have the chance to define his legacy, to turn a week of controversy into a moment of triumph. The fans who had called him spoiled, pathetic, and a sore loser would be watching. The media, who had dissected every word of his press conferences, would be watching. The golf world, which had been divided by his comments, would be watching. And Rory McIlroy, whether he liked it or not, would have the opportunity to answer his critics in the only way that truly matters. Not with words, not with complaints about course setups or slow play, but with his golf clubs. As Rory himself had said after his third round, reflecting on his Masters comeback, "I've progressively just got a little bit closer to the lead each day." On Sunday at Aronimink, he would have the chance to get all the way there. The debate over his comments would continue regardless of the outcome, but a victory would silence many of his critics, and a loss would give them even more ammunition. The pressure was on, the golf world was watching, and Rory McIlroy, for better or worse, was at the center of it all. For more coverage in golf, subscribe and hit the notification bell.